Welcome everyone. I hope you're having a fantastic weekend. I know a lot of you are getting ready to go shoot the Aurora next week. I've gotten lots of messages from you guys and seen all of the posts from individuals and companies sharing their tips and everything like that. So let me know in the comments if you are planning to go out and shoot it. And so you know, the April theme I've already decided is going to be celestial is the topic. So that means if you do go out to shoot the eclipse, you can enter a shot of that. But if you don't, you could still enter the aurora or a nightscape or the sun or stars or anything in the sky, basically. So I look forward to seeing your shots. Now, for this month, the theme is Flash, and we got about a dozen entries or so. I'm also going to answer as many questions as I can as possible this week. So if you have a question, please throw it into the chat. I'll just add one now. Please use the hashtag so that I can see it. Ask Matt. And then I will go through those as we're judging the images as well. To coincide with our theme of Flash, I have put up 2 of my courses on half price for you guys, my dramatic single light course and Take Control of the Light, my original signature course that I made with Tina back in the day. So they're both up on half price, and there's links in the description and in the chat. Please let me know, folks, where are you chiming in from in the world? What are you up to? What have you been shooting? Are you planning to shoot the Aurora? Sorry, I keep saying Aurora, the eclipse. Let me know. I see we have lots of people in the room, so please give me some feedback in the chat so I at least know that you can see and hear me okay, and it'd be great to know who is actually here. As we let the room populate a little, I'll just give you a little update what I've got going on. I had, if any of you who saw my Bangkok course, Cara was one of the great models that I shot with. She was in Hong Kong in the last week, so I was able to catch up and shoot with her. And among other things, we were doing a video comparing, is this going to be in frame here? The Canon, Sony, and Nikon 50mm f1.2s, and the third one I don't see here, the Sigma as well. So all of the 50mm 1.2s are going to be side by side for the upcoming video, which should be a good one. I know a lot of people are into their 51.2s. Thank you, Peter, for the feedback. Seems like we don't have a particularly chatty group, so I might just get in and start judging the images. I'll come back to any questions that we have a little bit later. Strictly business today. Okay, so I'm going to not review with images, with names of images displayed. We'll just show the image, and remember the theme is Flash, so you could interpret that a little bit broadly, but essentially we're going to be expecting the shots have had added light. So this one of the little kitty cat. Now, actually it looks like 2 little kitty cats. Looks like there's one on the edge of frame here as well. It's very cute. Something to keep in mind when you're shooting, this goes for, it's fairly common in nature where you're shooting an animal, a bird or something in through foliage, that if you're shooting the flash in through the foliage, you're going to have it hitting everything that's closer than your subject a lot more intensely, which means you end up with these greens being brighter. Now, you may have tried to pull the green tones down in edit. You might want to just bring the kitty up a little bit to make sure it pops. Certainly looks like the cat's been quite heavily sharpened. It's cute. In this case, actually, with the shape of the cat and the layout overall, I think it works. Generally, I would not go for central composition, but on this I think it works quite well. So cute, good start. Looks like we're going to have quite a few pets today. Okay, so this good old boy. Very, very cute. Oops, sorry, I did just pop the name up there. Now, the challenge with shooting a dog is often that getting the eyes and the nose in sharp focus, you actually need a fair bit of depth of field. Here, actually, the nose and the eyes are both a bit out. The nose definitely, but it looks like the collar is the sharpest thing in focus. The collar, the tag, and the chest here. So I think maybe the focus was slightly off. It can be hard. Black dog, black background, low light room before you add the flash to get focus exactly where you want. But on a shot like this where it's clearly lit and we've got the specular highlights from the flash, we kind of expect to see a lot of detail from the fur through here, and to not see it, it kind of makes it quite clear that it's out, and see the ears are in. So I think it's just kind of back focused by an inch or so from the eyes, and that meant that extra inch means the nose, even though the pup has his nose down, which would have made it easier to get it all in focus, the nose is definitely out. Otherwise, I think it could work on the crop a little bit too. It's a bit of an unusual crop how it is, but I'm not sure, that having all of that in there, if this is what we have to start off with, if all of it is really adding, I think you could probably bring it in. You've got the natural vignette kind of already from just the negative space. I feel like that's a stronger crop on that one. What do you guys think? Okay, just jumping back, I see the conversation has come alive, so let's just quickly check in. Hi Peter, Shane, Paul, Redog, John Muscat, July, and William. Thanks for chiming in, guys. So let's have a look at the questions that we have so far here already. And I also have a dozen or so on Instagram. Sorry, I got lost. I have too many windows open here. So, first question. John Muscat, I know you're fussy with your ISO limits. What do you feel is the acceptable limit of the Z8, Z9 sensor considering the denoise limitations of Lightroom Classic? This you would have, I know John, you followed the channel and you've seen most things that I put out. There's no limit that I can tell you should be your limit. I'm sorry for kind of a dismissive answer in a way, but you and I and all of us, I think, should, when we get a new camera or as we're getting familiar with the camera, go and take a bunch, or when you're on a shoot, just get a variety of different ISOs and check it for yourself, for your taste. And you might find that the Z8 is fine up to 12,800. I might like it at 3,200, someone else might only like it at 800. It really depends on your own personal taste and how you're going to be processing the images. I'm personally not a heavy user of denoise software. It's like, I know people now who just, well, commenters, who I take at their word, say that they just now let themselves go 2 or 3 stops higher on ISO and then denoise every single shot in Lightroom or Topaz or something when they bring it in to work on it. I don't want to add that time-consuming step to my workflow, so I'm trying to get it straight out of camera. And whilst I'm aware those denoise software are getting better and better and better, I still think you get the best result just by shooting it at a low ISO. Shane Williams, seems to be where we are desperately needing a high-level crop sensor from Nikon to compete with bodies like the R7 and R10 from Canon. Do you see those being released at any stage? Well, I don't. It's your statement that we're desperately needing them. It's not something I've given a whole lot of thought to. I really don't know. I haven't given it thought. I'm sorry to have, it's nice if I can give a considered answer here, but they did have, the D500 was a great camera. APS-C sensors have come a long way in the last 6 or 8 years. Yeah, it would be great to see, but Nikon have been, if you're fortunate like me that you're a Z8, Z9 user and a long lens user, they've been putting a lot of attention into updating those cameras and building out the lens range, so that's been great. But yeah, if you're an APS-C shooter, I can see that it's kind of a bit behind. I will answer the last questions we have here, and then we'll go back to the images and then keep sending in your questions. I do see someone here saying that the audio is a tad low. Rather than me adjusting it and then potentially deafening everyone else in the room, if you can just turn yours up for now, that'd be great. Redog, what aperture do you think a cat photo's at? I guess you mean the cat photo we already looked at. I'd have to have another look at it. I'll let you know. Monsignor Moses Palasock. Good morning, Matt. Is a Nikon D850 still worth to buy, or should I go for a Z7 II? The D850 is, and like all these cameras, it's as good as it was at the time it was released, which is phenomenal. It's, I think, one of the best DSLR cameras made by any brand ever. And that's not just me being a Nikon devotee. Also, a lot of the Canon 5D series were some of the best DSLRs ever made as well, in my opinion. I would say if you went from the D850 to the Z7 II, it's 50-50. Some people find it a great switch and love it. Other people find the Z7 II wanting. The Z8, on the other hand, is a great replacement, in my opinion. William Davidson, do you frame your crop in the camera or prefer doing it in post software? When you say frame my crop, you mean do I get the frame that I want by using the zoom or moving my position versus cropping it later? I guess that's what you mean, William. I try to get the shot in camera, but I have no problem at all with cropping to get the final result that I want. I often crop my images to a 4:5 or sometimes even a 1:1. And I'm not always changing my format in the camera to view that at the time. So yeah, I personally have no problem with cropping after the fact. Okay, we have more questions. I'm going to answer the one here from Peter and Nick and then go back to the pictures. And I appreciate all the questions. Please keep sending them in. But for those who are just here for images, I'll try to keep doing both at once. Nick saying, I know people rave about denoise software, but I find it makes failed images slightly less failed at best. I don't think I can really save a bad image yet at this point. Thanks for the opinion, Nick. And Peter, I got a D750 mixed results for wildlife AF-wise, slow-moving animals with 3D tracking. Considering either a D850 or an X-Bead 7 Z body or a book on Nikon DSLR autofocus. Thoughts? Well, you brought it up. This isn't a Peter thing, this is an everyone thing, it's a Matt thing. When I pick up the Canon R3, at the beginning my strike rate is going to be lower even though it's a capable camera, just because I'm not familiar with the autofocus system in the same way that I am with Nikon and Sony and Hasselblad, for example. So certainly you'll get a better strike rate if you learn the autofocus system better. That's fair and that's true for everyone. Will you get better results with a D850 or another body? potentially. The out of the options that you've mentioned there, again, the Z8 would be your best bet in terms of what's going to grab and stick with wildlife. But I would try to get the best out of what you have to begin with. And Izzy is going to bed, so it's 3 a.m. in the UK, but wanted to say I enjoy your content. I think your reviews are the best and more impartial. Awesome. Thank you, Izzy. Have a great rest. I'm trying to take on the positive feedback I get. It's funny, as a whatever I am, I hate the word like influencer or content creator, but whatever I am, as someone who has an audience, it seems to go two ways. Either people can let all of the compliments go to their head and then become arrogant or jerks or really self-important, or more common in this kind of space is, I think, that you start to not even pay attention to the positive feedback, but when you get negative feedback, it really sticks in your brow and can get you down. So I'm trying to take a moment, not let it, go to my head and make me think that I'm something better than I am, but take on board the thanks that I get, because I tend to, if I get 10 positives and 1 negative, fixate on the negative. So thank you. That's really nice of you to say. Have a great rest. Jay, Pharrell, Rick, and everyone else, please keep sending in your questions. I'm just going to jump back to our images and let's take a look at a few more. Now we got a question, what do I think the cat, I think they were asking what do I think the cat was shot at. It's really hard to tell without knowing the rest of the details. F2, f2.8, something around there, I would guess. Okay, so this does look like a flash lit shot. I don't know if this is an intentional effect. Maybe it's a film shot that's then had a photo taken of it. Look, I think from what I can see, the outfit, the accessories, the makeup, the scene, all kind of work as a theme. If you're going for a vintagey vibe, then maybe this effect works. I'm not personally a big fan of this effect, and it kind of washes away some of the benefits, I think, of the flash that you've added to the shot. But other than the treatment and the fact that you just have no highlights or shadows in this, it's like a really compressed, can I show that? Can I show the histogram? Yeah, you can see there, it's really compressed what we have in this. Other than that, I think this is quite a nice shot. Okay, here we are with some proper lighting. I mean, you can't exactly choose your whole frame necessarily. You don't know where the lightning is going to strike. And I just noticed that I am covering the lightning there, so that should make it a bit better. Yeah, I think the lightning is actually really nicely framed here. Just I think the image could do with a bit more careful editing of the foreground and the sky as separate areas to really make this image come to life. Now, what are we looking at here? Is that a whole bunch of people holding candles or something? Let's have a little peek. Nope. What is it? Fireflies or something? Well, how we define continuous versus flash is that flash turns on and off for a kind of a predetermined amount of time, and it's not continuous essentially. So if these are blinking fireflies, then I guess that can be considered a flash for the purposes of my broad themed competitions. Having said that, I just don't know that it's clear really what's going on, or that it's a strong enough foreground to support a mostly empty background. I think it's a cool concept, and maybe trying to add some elements to the shot where you're able to make use of the fireflies could be worth it. This overall is a fairly nicely put together one. I would suggest trying a few different focal lengths, a few different vantage points on what your angle is on your subject to find what's the most flattering for them. But overall, I think this comes together really nicely. We'll look at one more, then go back to the questions. And this is actually one that I threw in because we didn't have that many entries. This is one, I think the model's name was Jess. I shot with her in Hollywood for my upcoming headshots course. So feel free to leave me a guess on how many different lights and gels and whatnot we had going on for this one. This was just shot in the corner of a room in the middle of the day in Hollywood. A bright sunny room, but we overpowered the available light using the flashes, and then added the color, and it was pretty much as it was out of camera. We didn't have to do too much to this shot. Let's take a look at what questions we've had come in now. Jay Mills, I'd like a video camera that can shoot photos. I can't decide between the A6700, the A7C2, or the ZVE1. Doing travel, vacation, and short creator videos. There's, well, first of all, do you want APS-C or do you want a full frame? Here is the ZVE1. If you ask me, it kind of looks like if Barbie went skiing and took a camera, this is the camera she would take, mainly because the little fluffy thing looks like something that a fancy girl would wear as a beanie when they go skiing. So this is the 12 megapixel sensor, same as the FX3 and the A7S3. If you're looking mainly for video and doing some stills, something like this is a great option. To be honest, if you're sounds like you're looking at Sony's, something like just an A7 IV is a great option. It does really nice video. So it's going to come down to if you want the traditional EVF as well. And then when it comes to stills, is 12 megapixel going to be enough for you, or do you want one of the higher res sensors? I actually have a video filmed and uploaded, but I haven't scheduled it yet, which is going through basically the entire Sony range and, talking you through what each different model suits and that kind of thing. So you might want to keep an eye out. Make sure you subscribe to see that one coming soon. Pharrell, would you recommend the ZF or wait for the Z6 III? I can't tell you whether or not you should wait for a camera that's not announced, that I have no idea what the specifications are. Even if you were saying the Z6 II and the ZF, it's still, I would have to go through, like I just did for the last person, about the pros and cons and what's going to suit you, because I don't know your specifications, but I can't guess between an existing camera and a hypothetical camera. I don't follow the rumor sites. I don't know what the Z6 III is meant to even come with, or when it's coming. So Anthony, I might even skip your question because I am not a Z6 II shooter and I haven't been giving the Z6 III any thought. I'd be happy to hear the room's conversation of what they're hoping for in a Z6 III though, because if you're the target audience for that camera, I'm sure you've given it some thought. Wow, a lot of questions about it. Do you think it's possible that Z6 III will have a new stack sensor? I have no idea. So Z6 III questions, I'm sorry, I'm going to skip. I just have no idea. It's not because I have any inside info and I'm trying to remain hush-hush. I just haven't given it any thought. Stephen, Is the 28 to 400 really dark with the f8 after 200 mil? I'm not sure what you mean by really dark. If you're using a mirrorless camera, the image to your eye is going to remain nice and bright. F8 is F8, so what its impact on images, that you'll know. Moldenite, and this is a question we have in Instagram as well. Do you still shoot film from time to time? Occasionally. For the longest time, I basically had stopped and I didn't miss it at all. Occasionally now I do. That's still a video I have to make. I took a couple of disposable film cameras with me to Tokyo to my photo walk and gave them out to people to shoot with. And planned to share the results. I haven't done that yet. So in some ways, I still enjoy it occasionally, but I don't miss the whole process. I certainly don't miss being film exclusively, and I don't miss regularly having to develop and go through that whole process and pain and expense of developing and scanning. John, do you think that Nikon could use the ISVR to move the sensor during a shot like Pentax K3 Astro Tracker function for longer shots without star trails? Could they? I mean, I'm not really sure what you're asking me. Do I think Nikon has the same technology as Pentax? Yeah, maybe, but I don't know that they can just implement that with a firmware update. Pentax needs some little tricks like that to keep themselves alive. Stephen, I heard you saying my audio is too low. I apologize for that. I'll have to ask you to please just turn your speaker up a little bit because I'm away from the camera right now. And I don't know that I can increase it here. You're right though, it is a little low. But yeah, I'm sorry, without getting up and then potentially ruining everyone else's audio, I can't easily change that. Okay, I'll answer these last two questions and then go back to the video. And sometimes it's really difficult to answer questions in this one-way format without having a conversation where I can just ask follow-up questions to clarify exactly what you mean. And also sometimes things have 10 variables in the answer that to give a precise answer, it would take me half an hour in a one-way thing. Stephen's saying, sorry, let me rephrase my question. This is about the 28 to 400 lens. A lot of users were complaining that the 400mm focal range for 28 to 400 was not sharp enough and they needed to turn up the ISO. Is this the case? I can't speak on behalf of a lot of users and what they expected should be sharp enough. I made a video, I shared test images, I show how the images look at 400mm. And then that's where it starts to get murky. So it's not sharp enough and they needed to turn up the ISO. Is that the case? Well, I can't comment if people need to turn up the ISO. Exposure is exposure. If you're shooting in a dark situation and you don't add light and you want a certain shutter speed and you're limited to f8, then your ISO needs to go to what your ISO needs to be to get the shot. And as your ISO goes up, you are degrading your image. So that at a high ISO, you can lose perceivable sharpness, just due to the high ISO. So I can't answer whether they found it not sharp enough or whether they had to put their ISO up. I can say that if I'm in a situation where I have to shoot at f8 or slower, I'm going to be looking for scenes where I have sufficient light. That's what I can say. And it's a variable aperture, super telephoto lens. I wouldn't expect that at the longest end it's going to be amazingly sharp. So I hope that's direct enough to answer. Yes, that's probably true. It would be sharper at 200 than it is at 400, I imagine, on a technical level. Moldenite, I loved your Nikon F6 $1 million baby poster recreation video. Thank you. I really enjoyed making that one. I would love to make some more of those. If you guys haven't seen it, let me just find a link to share with you. I wanted to do a series where we choose the camera from a particular era, so say 1982. So what was the top professional camera at that time, and what was the top or one of the top movies of that year? And then it's, you know, a reasonable chance that maybe they shot the cover of that with that camera. So then we reviewed the camera by recreating the cover photo of the movie poster. And for some reason, I can't actually find my own video now. This is a bit shit. If I can't even search my own channel to find a video, how can I expect you guys to? But yeah, that's the case. Sorry. If you can find it, Moldenite, please share it in the chat. Okay. Anil, can I explain the cat pic again in detail? Sorry, no, I've already talked about that twice. Okay, need to kind of get everything back on the smooth here. Let me jump back in, take a look at some more images that you guys have submitted, and I'll come back to any other questions. Okay, so this was my shot, and let's jump forward. So this is similar to what we were saying with the cat picture that somebody wants me to discuss 3 times. To be honest, I can't really, maybe a little, tell that this has any flasher, maybe a little. But it still has the issue of the foliage in the foreground can be quite bright. Here, I don't think it overpowers the scene at all. But I feel like I've seen this shot before. Whoever entered this one, did you enter it on a previous competition as well? I think my feedback then, and it's the same now, is it's a very cluttered frame. I know they may be something like wood ducks, so having them surrounded with wood makes sense, but I think having the 2 birds overlapping each other isn't ideal, and then having all of the twigs and everything in the foreground doesn't help at all. This is a nice vantage point on the ducks to get all of the colors of their beak and eye and chest and breast and all their feathers. This, as opposed to looking straight on at the camera, probably is their most interesting angle, but I think the rest of the scene is tough. And I get it, you know, you spot a beautiful bird, you have to get it where you get it. You can't always have it on pristine, clear water with perfect reflections and no distractions. But still, what I'm reviewing now is the final image, not the challenge of taking it, unfortunately. Holy crap. Okay, so I guess this is a little honeybee in crazy detail. I love when you can see the segmented eye like this. And I think what I like most about this is, whilst it has such crazy detail, it doesn't feel too over-processed. Sometimes these shots, they just then turn up the dials to 11 on everything and make it look almost like it's an AI shot. Look at that little claw foot. Yeah, pretty spectacular. And framing up the flower or whatever it was right behind the honeybee is a nice touch as well. Having it slightly off center, although the eye is right in center, also a nice, I like the framing overall. Really nice shot. I haven't been doing picks this video, so I won't throw a pick on yet, but we'll come back to choose winners. Let me know what you guys think of the pictures too. Now, how many more shots have we got left? Okay, just 4 more. So I'll look at one more here and then we will go back for questions. Okay, so a classic flashlit portrait. We've got a few different lights here, and the light coming in across the cheek and ear here. Maybe 3 lights in total. It kind of reminds me of a shot that I shared a tutorial on shooting with my grandfather, maybe 4, because the background's quite well lit as well. It's really nice. I think this side light could be dialed back like a half or a third of a stop. It's a small adjustment, but I think how bright it is on the collar, that could come down just a little. But yeah, it's a really nice shot. I would like to see some variations with different exposure in the background. I assume if it was its own light, you could control that as an independent variable. That's the great thing about flash. You can have different zones of light in your shot and have, you know, the fill light or your key light or the hair light or the background light, and just vary that one, and sometimes you can get a much more moody shot. If you just drop one of the shots by a stop, suddenly the balance changes and you have a much more high contrast shot. But nice one. All the things that we love about flash, loads and loads of detail, and then a senior man and facial hair. It all comes together to yield loads and loads of detail, and it's yeah, nice, tender, great connection with the subject. Let's jump back then and take a look at the questions that we've had come in. Anthony, what do you think of Nikon buying red? I did a whole video on it on the day it was announced, so you can check that one out. It'll be interesting to see with what kind of co-branded products we have coming. They've made announcements that they're not going to stop any support of things, but I personally have friends who were about to buy, actually the owner of this Canon camera, thank you again for loaning it to me, was about to buy a red camera and has now put it on hold because as a Canon shooter, he wants to know that there was a future with red continuing to use the Canon mount as an option. Now, whilst they may give support for the lifetime of those products, are they going to release new products where they're paying Canon a license fee to use their mount, or are, you know, the 2025, 26, 27 releases going to have a Nikon mount, and then for someone like him who owns no Nikon lenses, it makes red a less viable option. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, I have to say, so often on these shows we get 3 questions and it's so hard to coax questions out of people. So firstly, thank you so much for all of these questions, folks. On some of them, I am going to have to suggest that you go check out my video. For example, someone saying, what do you think of the image of the 180 to 600 lens? I've made video on it. I've given free sample raw files that you can download and check out for yourself. So rather than me trying to recall from my memory 3 months ago what I said in the video, without being rude, can I request that you go and watch that video? And if you want to know about the image quality, download the photos, because I have actually, I'm sure, put, you're a wildlife photographer. I'm pretty sure I have bird photos there shared. So please check that one out. Anthony. Tapia, have you tried the Canon 28 to 70 lens? What do you think? Yep, I certainly have. Yeah, I think it's great. I can see why so many people love it. I personally did miss the 24 to 28 part of the range. It's quite a big chunk. And I find with 24 to 70s, I tend to spend probably 40% of the time at 24 to 30, 40% of the time 60 to 70, and only 20% of the time somewhere around 50 mil. So losing that wide angle to gain an extra stop, kind of a trade-off. 70 at f2 is great, but if you already have like an 85 even f1.8, that's going to get you a much more shallow depth of field. But as an all-around, wedding lens or something, apart from the size and weight and price, it is a spectacular performer. Sorry, there's a lot of questions and now I'm losing track of where I'm up to, and they don't all have the Ask Matt on them, so it's kind of hard to find sometimes. TJ, I'm not sure what your question is there, actually, if you could clarify for me. The Brancos, who's in the chat, is a big 28 to 70 fan. He's their favorite lens. Yes, okay. Now, before we go too far, let me just jump in and grab the questions I had on Instagram and answer for you. A little bit odd reading it off my phone. Troy Be Flying asked, best rendering, the Hasselblad 80mm 1.9 or the 90mm f2.5V new lens? And I think he was asking because the photo I shared on Instagram was a Hasselblad, me holding a Hasselblad, and also it was someone in the chat who loaned me the Canon who also loaned me that Hasselblad. Troy, I haven't actually compared the 80-1.9 to the 90-2.5 to give you an answer on that, but we did film that day comparing the 110 f2 old lens on the 203 body to the new 90mm V. So that video will be coming soon. Gosh, I have quite a few I still need to get edited. Peter asking, do I still shoot film? I already answered that question in this video. Chris, why do people think need to take same shot, other take, but can find different way of taking? The wording I'm a little bit confused on, but the thing about why do people feel they need to take the same shot everyone else is taking, gosh mate, I question that sometimes myself. As someone who loves going to Japan, I'm so fucking sick of photos of Mount Fuji where someone frames it between the leaves of a tree on the bank of the river. Or at this time of year, the million photos of cherry blossom that get shared and the same framing. If you're a tourist and you're going and you love it and you want to just try it, then fine. But then these professional photographers and tutorials, just everyone who goes taking the exact same photos, I find it so incredibly boring, or the same pagoda or the same street in the town, and you go there and there's just a line of 50 photographers trying to get the same shot. The cynical me is just like, why fucking bother? But on the other hand, if you're enjoying your photography, you're creating a shot that you love, then why do I need to be a bitch about it? You should just go and enjoy what you're shooting. But I do think there's something to be said for finding your own image, because like if you're talking about Mount Fuji or the Eiffel Tower or the Sydney Opera House or whatever it may be, these classic icons, you're going to be competing with the 50,000 other photos taken of it on the same day for eyeballs or for attention. So yeah, I struggle as well. And brace yourself, in a week from now, we'll be seeing 500 different eclipse photos on our timeline from every friend who went to shoot it. Hopefully there'll be some interesting variations on those. Um, yeah. Beautiful human photography. If you were to get a cheapish analog 35mm camera, which one would you look for? Gosh, there's so many. I don't. Cheapish is also kind of hard. I don't know. Is cheapish for you under $100 or under $1,000 or what? I really love the Nikon FE camera, and they're relatively inexpensive. But then Canon and Olympus have ones that are just as good and maybe even less expensive again. If you're wanting a kind of a compact point and shoot 35mm, then that's a whole different ballpark, and they can actually be more expensive and less reliable. They're more expensive because they got really popular with, you know, generation of 18 to 30-year-old photographers who want that kind of 90s point and shoot. So like Olympus Muse and Nikon T28 and 35 Ti's and Contax T2, T3, those kind of cameras. I've done some videos on those on my channel as well that you can check out. Ernest Ma, who's the best editor you've worked with? Shamelessly, desperately seeking attention and validation. My goodness. Well, let's flip the script and actually answer your question. The best editor. I know what you're looking for is praise for yourself. So I'll start with that so I'm not just being a tight ass. You were very, very efficient. We would get a lot done. So being able to switch between different projects, rush through things, working on 2 YouTube videos and 3 download courses all at the same time, you did exceptionally well for that. And when we had more time, your creative edits were really good. Aaron, who I'm working with now, is not nearly as fast as you, but I do like his creative style of editing a lot. And no disrespect to either of you, but I've worked with some freelance people in the past who, you know, cost a fortune and weren't fast, but were just incredibly thoughtful with their shooting and editing. So you were right up there, mate. And I still have a place here for you if you want to come back. Guile 2D, how did you decide to publish a book? Was it good business or you wanted to be free? And I actually wrote to him to clarify this by, did you want to be free? He means, did I want to be free of censorship, that kind of thing. So for those of you who are new, gosh, I don't remember the year, but way back when I made a book called Private Bodies, which was essentially, I won't go into it in too much detail, but it's art nude photography. That one was all about people in their own homes, not necessarily formal models, everyday people as well, but a mix of different people from lawyers to performers. And the thought was, why is it that it's okay to see violence and drug abuse and da-da-da-da-da in mainstream media, but nudity is where we draw the line? That's what'll get you kicked off social media before hate speech or violence or any of that kind of thing. So we were shooting in people's own spaces, so then you got to see their context and more about the person. And yes, it was to be free of, you know, censorship and to be able to just put out my work as I wanted to. Certainly that was it. Was it good business? Look, overall it did make money, but if I tried like the printing process and then selling the book, that part made money. If I actually stopped to think about how much time I had put into all of the shooting, like the 500 photo shoots for that book, and then the time to edit and put the book together and put minimum wage on the time involved, then no, it wasn't worth it. But having most of the images as a collection already, then yes, it was worth it. And then I followed up that with a second book, Public Bodies, Why Should It Only Be Acceptable at Home? Yeah. Unboxed Travel asked, Hasselblad versus Nikon versus Sony, which color do you like the most? And I replied to that on the Instagram, but I'll reply here as well. It reminds me of a scene with Elle in Kill Bill Part 2, where she says something like, Bud says, talking about swords, when you ask about a Hattori Hanzo sword, you compare it to any other sword ever made, not to another Hattori Hanzo. So kind of my response was, we can debate whether Nikon or Canon or Sony or Fuji or Leica or all of those brands have the best color and have different opinions on it and in different circumstances. But for my taste, Hasselblad is clearly the best. For example, I do think there are ways and situations where Canon has better color, or I prefer the color over what I get from my Nikon. And there are times actually where I think Sony has really nice color. There's some lighting situations where I think Sony has the worst color, and there's some times where I don't like the green tones coming from my Nikon when green isn't when it's not a landscape shot. But you shoot your portraits and you're like, wow, the Canon's looking really beautiful. Then you take a shot with the Hasselblad and you realize that Canon is one of the normal guys. And there's something really special about the Hasselblad one. So that's my personal take on it. And then Hello Me says, Hasselblad 500cm, is it a machine worth a try or just a nostalgic and niche? Honestly, I think it's both of those things. It is nostalgic, it is niche, but if you've got the budget and the patience, then it's also worth a try. They are so much fun and they are really enjoyable to shoot with. But it is mainly, for me anyway, nostalgia. I don't think the shots that I get from them are that much, that are better than I get with my modern equipment, but the shooting process is really lovely. So it's all of those things. Okay, so thank you for all the questions. We have a few more come in there. I think I have 3 more shots to review here, and then I'll come back to any last questions if there's anyone actually still in the room. And there actually are. So if you're here and you haven't yet, please do hit like and leave a comment, so then this gets some more interaction and hopefully a few people see it to make it worth me having lost my voice talking non-stop nonsense. So let's take a look at the last few shots here. Okay, now what's this down in the bottom right hand corner? I don't know what this is, but it looks careless that it's here. I think, look, there's some things here that are really working, there's some things that aren't. Firstly, let's get rid of that. I think bringing it in closer on her works better. Get the top of the stocking is worthwhile though. The light on her face and shoulder I think works great. Even the hip is fine. You might want to adjust, hips and shoulders independently of each other to see what gets the most flattering line through her body. And I don't think that the hoodie or the jacket, whatever that is, really works here. I see that I appreciate it even, that you're using it for modesty. So if that had been, a revealing pair of underwear, that could cause issues for YouTube, having her whole backside exposed. So I appreciate it being there, but I don't know that it really matches. Like a robe or something that matches the rest of the outfit she's wearing might work better. Or even just tucking away somehow the zipper or bringing down the highlight there, because it kind of grabs the attention. Or I don't know, maybe there's a better way to do it using the jacket as well, because then, having a jacket and then underneath being just beautiful lingerie, that's actually quite a cool contrast. But we're not quite getting it here. So maybe having the jacket still partly on, but then revealing what's beneath as well, that could work well. A lot going right here, but I think the thing in the bottom right-hand corner was really sloppy to leave that in. Oh, who's a good boy? Mr. Floofykins is a good boy. Anyone who, yeah, I know a lot of people are like this, but if you are ever out with Steph and I, and we're filming or we're doing a walk or we're doing anything in life, you'll realize that every dog we pass, we have to stop and try and talk to, and if the owner will let us, give it a pat and maybe we'll even make eye contact with the owner. This is a cute pup. Having said that, the colors are nice, the contrast is nice. I feel like I don't know, it's a nice enough scene, and it's a beautiful animal, and the exposure's right, but it's missing that je ne sais quoi. It's missing the certain something that would elevate this, and it could be just the expression on the dog's face, it could be more interaction in the background, it could be coming slightly higher up and then zooming in a bit more so that we have the dog just on the green and blue and don't have his head sitting on the rear side of the river. I'm not sure, it's just not quite there. But he's definitely a good boy. And I think this was our lucky last. More classic studio portrait. There's not much here to critique. It's nicely put together. The only thing is I would probably like to see the highlights raised a little, so like something to there rather than where it came in. I think that she is, you know, basically the top 2/3 of the exposure are her. So by lifting that up, it helps us pop her out from the background as well as getting just more contrast through the image. It's fairly simple. Everything is working together. You know, sometimes you look at an image and something just jumps out as being remarkably good or shouldn't be there. This has nothing that feels like it's out of place or shouldn't be there or doesn't work. There's no hair in the way. We're not losing the second eye. All of the accessories and clothing and everything work together. The only thing that now, having said all of that, pops out of me is this little thing popping out of her hat, but that's the most minor thing. You could retouch that in just a second, and once I'm in there, I do see this hair, but on the wide shot, I can't even notice that hair. It's very, very simple, but I think it works. It's clean and there's no issues. So that was our shots, folks. I'll just quickly run through them again. Let me know your thoughts on them. Cat, dog, faded, sailor, lightning, fireflies, I think. A lady trying to get into a concert. A lady lit with neon lights by myself. Some ducks, bee, man, studio portrait, the lingerie shot, and how we actually brought that shot in rather than my crop and everything was back here. That's how it came in. Puppy and the studio portrait. So let me know what you guys think of all those. I will now take a look at your last questions and feedback and then choose out my winner. Third nostril, Matt Granger. Why do you think Zeiss never made long-range telephoto lenses for wildlife? I feel like they have made some back in the day for different mounts, like medium format cameras. They actually do have some quite long lenses, but they don't make autofocus really in any of those ones. So maybe that's the reason that for DSLR shooters, they're not going to buy a 400 or 600mm lens, even if it's Zeiss quality, if it's not autofocus. Just a guess. Anthony, all the way from Canada, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Nick, ask Matt, did you say if you're going to shoot the eclipse? I decided I'm just going to be in the moment, look at it and enjoy it. All 4 million pics will look the same. No, I'm not going to shoot the eclipse. I haven't even paid attention to exactly where it is and what day it is. I just know it's coming. I am going to be in Vegas, so maybe I'll be in the right place in the right time after all. But no, I've never shot the eclipse, and that's not really my thing. Another one from Nick. Last question. The black and white boudoir image, I probably would have liquefied her tummy in very slightly. What say you about body sculpting in post? Look, I think if you and your subject are on the same page about it, or if they've requested it, it's fine. I generally don't. It's not, that I'm a journalist, so everything has to be perfect. I don't have a hard and fast rule about that, but it really depends what I was shooting for. If I am shooting, if she hired me for her portfolio and her or her agents asked for that kind of retouching, then fine. It's done throughout the industry. It's not like it's not like the Invention of Lying movie where I'm going to be the one who's tricking people because everyone else is doing it straight up. But for a lot of my shooting, it's about individuals and people rather than being some standard of beauty. So freckles, all of that kind of thing, stretch marks, wrinkles, I don't remove them. And I would, as I gave feedback, I would have given suggestions to her on how to pose to flatten out the tummy and minimize skin folds across her torso in the moment. That's how I'd rather do it. Okay, studio portrait has my vote. The B is my pick. Lorenzo, what watch are you wearing? Funny you asked that. I just brought this back from my home. This is one that's been in my room for years, and each time I go home, I take a look again at the odds and sods and see is there anything of interest that I want to take back. And having looked at this 10 times on my last 10 trips and never interesting me, I picked it up this time. It's an old Tissot Seamaster T12 Sea Star. And the crown is falling off and the crystal, you can barely see through it. But the funny thing is, I asked my parents, they don't even know whose it was. I'm guessing it was my dad's, because I got a bunch of old cameras and stuff from his office when he passed, or they went to either me or my dad. So I'm guessing it was his. It must have been one of my grandfather's. I'm imagining, depending on when it was released, I don't know if it could have been someone's before theirs. But yeah, I'm thinking I might try and get it serviced and the crown fixed up as a little something. I know it's not a particularly valuable watch, but assuming it's my grandfather's, I think it's nice to keep it running. Okay, Peter, do you have a favorite bag for travel that can be worn up front for security and accessibility? You mean up front, like on the front of your body? Any backpack, I guess you can. You can turn it around and just put it on your front and then get your lenses out of the side. So any that have a side or top access rather than the rear access, you could wear it up front. So I wouldn't say I have a favorite per se, but probably one of the ones that's designed, like a Peak design or something that's designed for side access is the way to go, because a lot of mine, you really need to take them off, so because they open at the bottom, so you'd risk everything falling out otherwise. Yes, let's now choose winners or finalists or all of that good stuff. Okay. Hey, stop it. Trying to increase my zoom here a little bit. There we go. think there's 4 that stand out. I'll just recap them and I hadn't actually announced that there was any prizes this week, so we'll just run through, show the names and who took them and that kind of thing. Let me move myself down so I'm not blocking their names. Wolfgang Harnisch. So I thought this one is nicely balanced. Again, I'd like to see some different vantage points towards your subject, but overall nicely balanced, no real distractions, and I feel like the outfit and the theme, all the elements go together nicely. This one from Shane Williams is startlingly beautiful and detailed. I think, choose this as my number 1. Well done. Bram Tolkamp, always submitting great images. This is a really nice portrait. I think, again, bring down the rear side light on the collar, neck, and cheek just a little bit, and then maybe play with the background light, assuming that is a separate light that's lighting the background, or could be your ambient, in which case your shutter speed. And then Karsten Larsen. Simple shot, but I feel like this has, it just works. This is what this kind of classic studio photography is kind of about. You could go for some more contrast, bring out the highlights, like I said, potentially bringing your subject away from the background or using a faster aperture to blur out the background a little bit more, but sometimes simple is best. So thank you all for your entries. Thank you to everyone who has joined us and shared your shots. Let me, where am I? Here I am. Any last questions? Let's see. How do we find out about upcoming streams and the way to submit photos? Just found it, yep. So mattgranger.com/live. You can always go there and that will list what the next theme is and what the cutoff is, that kind of thing. For this coming one, which is going to be April, the theme is Celestial, so that covers your, having just said we're going to see 500 million of the shots, it's going to cover your eclipse as well as if you have aurora or sun shots or birds in flight or whatever it may be. As long as you're looking up to the sky, then it qualifies for that competition. Nick, he loves vintage Tissot. He's wearing a reproduction Viso date right now. Cool. I feel like this, whilst I'm really happy to have pulled it out, is quite dangerous for me. Whilst it's itself dangerous, I've been mostly only interested in new watches and larger ones, and then because I'm not buying precious metals, it means basically sports and stainless steel, which are really hard to get, but relatively not that expensive. But because they're hard to get at retail, then I haven't, that limits me from getting too much. But if I start to like this one and like smaller sized pieces and vintage, I feel like I'm opening up a whole rabbit hole of a million potential watches that are then, maybe in my budget that I should be considering. But I have to say, I actually really like this, and it's probably the smallest watch I have ever worn. So thanks for picking it out, Nick. ThinkPad X, any good film labs you recommend? They're not a fine art place, but I work with Panda Camera. They sell the biggest range of film in Hong Kong, and they develop everything as well. Nick, get a vintage watch from your birth year. Maybe, let's see, I have thought about that. And it's coming up soon to my 2-year anniversary from quitting drinking, so I might get myself a watch for that. Thank you to everyone for joining. If you haven't, all that usual stuff, like, subscribe, and yada, yada, yada. In the comments and the description, my new Sony setup guide is there, as well as the 2 courses that I have 50% off for those of you who want to learn Flash, Take Control of the Light, and Dramatic Single Light. I think that's about it. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you all for coming into the chat. And I'll see you all really soon. Ciao.